It was like a fucking Quentin Tarantino movie where you have Brad Pitt just smashing some lady's head on a freaking pedestal until it's absolutely just nothing. It's just blood everywhere coming out of his nose. But he tried to go for a takedown and slam Poirier like he did earlier in the fight, and Poirier just wasn't having it. He ended up taking ground control of Michael Chandler, ended up taking his back, taking the rear naked choke, and the rest is fucking history from there. What's going on, bros and hoes? Welcome to the Kevin Hoop Show, and we are back with UFC 281 content. Michael Chandler versus Dustin Poirier. And let me tell you, Dustin Poirier is a motherfucking savage. I'm talking Native American, pulling off your limbs while you're still alive type of fucking savage. At the same time, though, he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever fucking meet. I'd say probably one of the nicest guys in the UFC. He's got one of the calmest demeanors in the press conferences, and he's just a really genuine type of person. He's got foundations doing things for homeless people. He's getting 500 meals to feed people. He is just an all-around good fucking guy. How could you not like him? This fight was a fucking war from start to finish. From literally the first second of the fight to the last second when Dustin Poirier got the rear naked choke, it was an absolute entertaining fight. Possibly one of the fights of the year, honestly. And Michael Chandler opened up the fight fucking hot. He stunned Dustin really quickly in the fight. But this was a back and forth fight. And especially in the first round, it was very back and forth standing up. And I think Dustin came back after being stunned and kind of regained himself. And ended up really actually stunning Poirier with about 25 seconds left in the first round. And if he had more time, he might have been able to finish it off in the first round and said, I don't need the fucking next 2 rounds. We're fucking good here. But if you looked at Michael Chandler at the end of the first round, you would have thought all 3 rounds would have already fucking happened. Dustin Poirier landed one of the nicest fucking shots you can land on someone's nose that made fucking Chandler's nose just fucking explode with blood everywhere. It was like a fucking Quentin Tarantino movie where you have Brad Pitt just smashing some lady's head on a freaking pedestal until it's absolutely just nothing. It was just blood everywhere coming out of his nose at the end of the first. So then you still have 2 rounds of Poirier hitting it and smashing it and putting his elbows on it and just making it a lot more of a worse situation. Those 2 shots I mentioned may have not seemed as important as, the grand scheme of things, but I think that those 2 shots, the nose shot that made fucking Chandler's nose just bleed for the whole entire probably rest of the night, and the shot that stunned him at the last 25 seconds, I think that really led to Poirier winning and maybe making it a little easier for him to win in the third at least. The reason being, I think the nose shot made Chandler's gas tank just completely go from 100 to 0 very quick, making him completely have to use the second round to regain. Which is why I think you see him kind of stalling on the top. And yeah, he had some ground control and maybe some ground and pound. But he really was just staying on top of Poirier in the second round. I think really because he was gassed. He usually comes out hot in the first rounds. But I think he could only breathe through his mouth that whole entire time. And when you're training, you're breathing through your nose a lot, at least when you're inhaling. And that's a lot different in the fight when you have just constant blood probably coming out in your mouth. I saw him spitting out blood as well. So I'm sure his whole entire freaking inhaling process was just completely fucked, which definitely affected his gas tank. I think that last shot at the end of the first round with 25 seconds left, also it was a reason that he had to regain in that second round. Not only was he a little gassed, but he was also stunned. If Poirier had another 30 seconds to put in that rear naked that he put in the third round, like I said earlier, it was probably done in the first round. The second round, honestly, probably wasn't the most entertaining. It was really just Michael Chandler on top which really kind of led it to it being 1-1. That's what I had it going into the third round. Maybe some people had it 2-0 Chandler. I think the majority of people had it 1-1. Maybe you give it to Chandler, though. You see this a lot with 3-round fights. Maybe one fighter maybe gets 1 round and another fighter gets another round, then it's 1-1, and whoever wins the third round wins the fight. The third round is a very important round in these 3-round fights, especially in the UFC. That's the fight that everyone usually fights in until you get to the championship types of fights. I think that Chandler wanted to try and get a takedown. I think that was his strategy. Was that the right one? I don't think so with him losing the fight. But he tried to go for a takedown and slam Poirier like he did earlier in the fight, and Poirier just wasn't having it. He ended up taking ground control of Michael Chandler, ended up taking his back, taking the rear naked choke, and the rest is fucking history from there. I think it was an absolutely great fight. I think both of these fighters showed a lot, put a lot on the line, and I think it's going to be really exciting to see what happens next. Chandler was calling out McGregor in the press conference, and who knows if that will ever happen. But I think Michael Chandler definitely has a good amount of fights left in the UFC, and I'm always down to watch his fights. Now, Poirier's story, I think, is a little bit more interesting. He's ranked number 2 right now, and we obviously have Islam Makhachev wrapped up with Volkanovski. That fight's confirmed and everything. But I do think that Poirier has another run for the title, which you don't see a lot of fighters given a second or third chance. So that's going to be interesting to see who he fights next in his next 1 or 2 fights, because those next 1 or 2 fights might lead to a title shot. If not that second fight, if not the first fight, might be a title shot. So we'll have to see for that. I know Michael Chandler was talking about fighting Dariush. That might be interesting. And, we will have to see. I know Dustin Poirier was also talking about fighting Beneil Dariush, so that might be another interesting fight before he goes for the title shot. We will have to see. Now that fight literally might go down in history because it was probably one of the most entertaining fights we've seen in a while, if not all year, if not in the past 3 years. But what a freaking fight. Hats off to both of those guys. And that's going to be it for this one, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys thought about the fights. If you guys had Michael Chandler, if you guys had Dustin Poirier going into that, let me know what you guys think about the future for these fighters. It's going to be an interesting story for both of them, I think. And have a great motherfucking day.